Welcome back to the deep dive. Here, we try to unpack some, well, sometimes complex ideas and see what they really mean for us.
Glad to be here.
So today, we're looking at what happens after those first steps we've discussed. Taking action, gaining knowledge. It's like, what's the payoff?
Exactly. It's about understanding the results, the transformation that occurs once that initial groundwork is laid on the path to, well, more joyful life.
And our sources highlight three specific, pretty powerful benefits that come about. So yeah, let's get right into it. What are these big shifts?
Right. So the texts point to three key outcomes. First, the removal of delusion. Second, the removal of what are called impressions.
Okay.
And third, something quite interesting, the conversion of action into inaction. These aren't small tweaks, they're fundamental changes.
Let's tackle that first one then, removing delusion. Now, we're not just talking about being a bit mistaken about something, are we?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The source material paints delusion as something more serious, almost like a disease affecting our intelligence.
A disease. How so?
Well, it hinders our ability to clearly see the difference between what's aligned with a higher principle, dharma, and what isn't, adharma. And often, this confusion stems from attachment.
Ah, attachment. That connects back to the earlier stages, right? Where abstaining from sense objects starts to weaken that grip.
Precisely. Those earlier practices reduce attachment, sort of clearing the ground. Then knowledge comes in and does the final job. It completely removes the delusion itself.
And the result of that removal.
The source suggests that complying with Dharma, with that higher order, becomes natural. It stops being a constant effort and becomes just part of your nature.
So it's less about willpower and more about innate alignment. How does knowledge actually achieve that? What understanding does it bring?
The core insight really is about our true identity. Knowledge helps us realize we're not fundamentally this body-mind complex that we usually identify with.
Okay.
Our real essence is described as something deeper, the Atman eternal, blissful. Grasping this changes everything.
How does it change our perception of the world?
Well, you stop giving undue importance to the temporary things, the ups and downs. You start seeing the world, all beings, all objects, with a different perspective.
Like seeing them as part of your own self, or as expressions of the divine.
Exactly that. It's seeing the underlying unity. And the texts emphasize this is lasting. Once gained, you won't fall back into that same kind of delusion.
So it's a permanent shift. Like Teaching 67 says, knowledge removes our desires, attachment, and delusions.
It does. And verse 4.35 puts it quite beautifully. Knowing that you shall not again get deluded like this, and by that knowledge you shall see all beings without exception in yourself.
Seeing all beings in yourself. That implies a radical breakdown of separation.
It really does. It shifts from an intellectual idea to a lived perception.
Okay, so that's a huge benefit delusion gone. What about the second one? The removal of impressions. What are these impressions?
Good question. Think of them as subtle recordings, the results of all our past actions stored in what the source calls our causal body.
Our causal body, like a kind of spiritual hard drive.
That's a decent analogy, yes. It holds the records. And these recorded impressions, they aren't just passive memories. They actively influence our future. They determine the kinds of environments or situations we encounter.
So our past actions literally leave traces that shape what comes next. And knowledge can erase these. That sounds immense. Teaching 68 states it plainly. Knowledge erases all our past impressions.
It's a powerful claim. The texts use an analogy like a small boat. Knowledge can ferry you across the vast ocean of these accumulated impressions or sins.
Even if the sins or impressions seem overwhelming.
Yes. The idea is that the understanding changes the game entirely. Before knowledge, we tend to operate from the belief that I am the one doing the actions. I am the doer.
Right, and therefore I am responsible for the consequences which become these impressions.
Exactly. We identify with the ego, the doer, but knowledge brings a crucial distinction. It separates our true self, the Atman, which is inherently actionless, from the ego, which thinks it's the doer.
So the I that accumulated the impressions isn't the true I.
That's the essence of it. There's that example given of the Buddha, after enlightenment, saying he wasn't the same person who had previously left his wife. It points to this shift in identity.
That's quite a statement. It's like waking up from a dream.
That's another analogy used. You gain this profound knowledge, and it's like waking up. The actions and consequences within the dream don't bind you in the waking state.
So the past actions, performed in the dream state of ignorance, lose their binding power when you wake up to this knowledge.
Precisely. You still live life, but you understand it's operating on a different level. At the absolute level, the level of the Atman, there's no action, just eternal being. So those past impressions tied to the dream ego dissolve.
Okay, that's becoming clearer. It's a fundamental perspective shift that recontextualizes everything past. Now, the third benefit, action becoming inaction. This one sounds like a paradox.
It does initially, doesn't it? But it follows logically from the previous point. With knowledge, your understanding of action itself transforms. You see your body and mind as part of the material world, which is always in action, always changing, like nature itself. That's their inherent quality.
Right, inert objects in motion, essentially.
Yes. But you, your true self, the Atman, are understood as changeless, actionless. You are the witness, not the participant in the action of the body-mind.
So if the real you isn't acting, then the actions performed by the body and mind aren't your actions in the ultimate sense.
Exactly. From that perspective of the knowledgeable person, all actions carried out by their body-mind complex are seen as inaction, because the true self is not the doer.
Ah, I see. It's a redefinition based on identifying with the Atman, not the body-mind. Teaching 69 says just that. Knowledge converts all our actions into inaction.
Correct. And furthermore, actions performed after gaining this knowledge aren't driven by the same egoistic motives. They might be seen more as the action of God, perhaps, guiding others or simply fulfilling a role without attachment.
It removes the personal burden, the attachment to results.
Absolutely. Verse 4.37 uses a powerful image. As the blazing fire reduces fuel to ashes, so does the fire of knowledge reduce all actions to inactions.
The fire of knowledge consumes the illusion of personal doership.
Perfectly put. And verse 4.36 reinforces this power, stating that even the most sinful can cross over all sins using the raft of knowledge. It highlights the supreme liberating power of this understanding.
It really emphasizes knowledge as the ultimate purifier and liberator.
It does. It transcends the conventional framework of action and consequence.
Okay, so let's recap these three benefits. First, delusion is removed. We gain clarity about reality and our true nature.
Yes, leading to natural alignment with Dharma.
Second, past impressions are erased. We're freed from the binding effects of past actions.
Liberated from that karmic baggage, essentially.
And third, action transforms into inaction. We understand our true self is actionless, freeing us from the burden of doership.
Correct. A profound shift in perspective.
And the ultimate outcome of weaving these benefits together, where does this path lead?
Our sources conclude that the person who attains this knowledge lives joyfully, not a fleeting happiness based on circumstances, but a deep, inherent joy.
A joy stemming from understanding.
From understanding and experiencing our true nature, our unchanging essence, and recognizing, ultimately, that we are always one with the divine, with God. That realization itself is the source of lasting joy.
A powerful conclusion. So for our listeners, perhaps reflect on these three benefits: escaping delusion, erasing the past hold, reframing action itself. Consider what pursuing such understanding might mean for your own journey toward, well, a truly joyful life.
A worthwhile reflection indeed.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us.